"No one needs me," I told my family. My parents nodded in agreement. I packed my things and... Logan had always been a hard worker. At 25, he had already built a solid career as a diesel mechanic, making good money through sheer grit and determination. He wasn't the type to sit around waiting for opportunities to come to him. He had to create them himself. His parents, Stephen and Linda, had always wanted him to go to college, but Logan had other plans. He chose trade school instead, diving headfirst into an industry that valued skill and experience over degrees. He thought his family would respect his decision, or at the very least, accept it. But that wasn't the case. His younger brother, Nathan, was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. At just 20, Nathan lived a life of comfort, taking a couple of community college classes here and there, but never really committing to anything. Most of his days were spent in front of a glowing screen, immersed in video games while their parents catered to his every whim. If Nathan needed money, Stephen and Linda provided it. If he wanted a new gaming console, he got it without question. He didn't have a job, didn't contribute, and didn't have to worry about bills or responsibilities. And yet, Logan, who worked grueling hours in a physically demanding job, was the one expected to pay rent. At first, Logan didn't question it. He was an adult, after all. Paying rent was just part of life. His parents had set the amount at $800 a month. Not cheap, but manageable with his salary. He assumed that, like any other household, the rent money was going toward groceries, utilities, and helping out with expenses. He thought he was simply doing his part, contributing to the home he still lived in while he saved up to get a place of his own. But over time, little things began to nag at him. He noticed that his parents never seemed to struggle financially, despite neither of them having particularly high-paying jobs. The mortgage was never a concern in conversations. The bills were always paid on time, and somehow, they had extra money to spoil Nathan with new clothes, gaming accessories, and the latest iPhone models. Yet, whenever Logan asked for anything, even something small like help with car repairs, he was met with dismissive comments about being an adult and handling his own finances. The realization hit him one day when he overheard his mother talking to a friend on the phone. She was laughing, casually mentioning how Logan basically covers the mortgage, so it's nice not to have to worry about that. Logan's stomach twisted. He wasn't just helping out with expenses. He wasn't just paying rent. He had been covering the entire mortgage on the house, alone. The weight of that truth settled on his shoulders like a crushing burden. All this time, while he was waking up at dawn, covered in grease and sweat after long shifts, handing over $800 every month without fail, his parents had been sitting comfortably, because of him. While Nathan lounged around, enjoying a rent-free life, Logan had unknowingly taken on the role of provider. The humiliation burned deep. He had spent years believing that his parents were treating him fairly, that he was merely contributing his share like any responsible adult. But in reality, they had exploited him, using his hard-earned money to sustain the very household that catered to Nathan's laziness. He wasn't just paying rent. He was single-handedly keeping a roof over their heads while his brother lived in luxury. The anger came next, not just at his parents, but at himself, for not realizing it sooner, for being naive enough to believe they would treat him equally. He had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to be treated like this. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming. Had they ever respected him? Or had they always seen him as nothing more than a financial asset? And worst of all, if he hadn't overheard that conversation, would they have ever told him the truth? Logan clenched his fists, staring at the walls of the house he had unknowingly been paying for. A house where he was treated as nothing more than an afterthought, while his brother lived rent-free. He had been used, and now, he had to decide what to do next. Logan had long suspected that his parents treated him differently, but the reality of his situation was far worse than simple favoritism. It wasn't just the rent, it was everything. Every single thing in that house came with a price tag attached, but only for him. The $800 a month was bad enough, but that wasn't where it ended. His parents charged him extra fees for parking, utilities, and even the laundry machines in the basement. If he wanted to wash his work clothes after a long shift, he had to pay. If he parked his truck in the driveway instead of the street, there was a convenience fee. If he used the air conditioning too much in the summer, the bill was slipped under his door with a note about fairness and doing his part. Meanwhile, Nathan didn't have to worry about any of that. Logan's younger brother had a massive gaming setup, the kind most people could only dream of: multiple monitors, a custom-built PC, LED lights that pulsed to the rhythm of whatever music he played. He had his own bathroom, stocked with the best toiletries, while Logan had to share the cramped hall bathroom with his parents. And then there was the snack cabinet. Logan had never even heard of a personal snack cabinet until he saw Nathan's, an entire pantry shelf dedicated to imported chocolates, high-end chips, and expensive protein shake. If Logan even touched anything from it, his mother would scold him like a child. That's for Nathan, Logan. You know how much he loves his snacks. Logan did know. He also knew that while Nathan was stuffing his face with organic, grass-fed beef jerky and name-brand sodas, he was stuck eating whatever off-brand cereal or canned soup his parents begrudgingly bought for the house. The food situation was another slap in the face. His money paid for everything, yet he had the least access to it. If he wanted something special, he had to buy it himself and keep it in his room. Even then, it had a way of disappearing. He'd come home from work, exhausted and starving, only to find that Nathan had eaten the dinner he bought for himself. I was hungry, Nathan would shrug, crumbs still on his lips. Just get another one. And if Logan dared to complain? His mother would sigh, exasperated. You're the older brother, Logan. Be more understanding. Understanding. That was always the excuse. Nathan needed more understanding because he was still figuring out his future. Logan heard that line 100 times over. Nathan wasn't lazy, according to their parents. He was just finding himself. He wasn't aimless. He was taking his time to explore his options. But Logan had never been given the luxury of taking his time. The moment he graduated, the expectations had been clear. Work, pay rent, contribute. The weight of that injustice sat in his chest like a stone. But he kept his mouth shut because, at the end of the day, he still had a place to live. He kept telling himself that it was temporary, that he was saving up to move out, that he just had to endure it a little longer. He swallowed his pride and bit back his anger. Until the night everything fell apart. Nathan had invited his friends over. That, in itself, wasn't unusual. It happened all the time, groups of guys taking over the living room, playing loud music, getting drunk while their parents conveniently turned a blind eye. But this time, they had gotten into the garage. Logan's garage. Logan didn't have much in the house that was truly his, but the garage was his space. It was where he kept his mechanic tools, the expensive ones he had worked years to afford. His wrench set alone was worth more than Nathan's entire gaming setup. It was his livelihood, his future, and Nathan and his friends had destroyed it. Logan walked in to find the floor covered in beer bottles, the metallic scent of spilled alcohol mixing with motor oil. His tool chest had been tipped over, drawers yanked open, sockets and ratchets scattered across the ground. Some were missing entirely. His prized impact wrench, his most valuable tool, was lying in a puddle of beer, rust already forming along the edge. One of Nathan's friends was laughing, holding one of Logan's torque wrenches like a baseball bat. Something inside Logan snapped. "What the hell did you do?" His voice came out low and dangerous, his entire body shaking with fury. Nathan, leaning against the wall with a drink in his hand, barely looked up. "Chill, man. We were just messing around." Messing around. That's what they called thousands of dollars in damage. Logan's fists clenched so tightly his nails bit into his palms. "Do you have any idea how much this stuff costs?" Nathan scoffed. "Dude, relax. It's just tools. You can buy more." The lack of remorse, the sheer entitlement, it was too much. Logan surged forward, grabbing Nathan by the collar and shoving him against the wall. For the first time in years, Nathan actually looked afraid. "You think I can just replace them?" Logan's voice was a growl. "Do you have any idea how long it took me to buy these? How much work I put in?" The room had gone silent. Nathan's friends, previously cocky and loud, suddenly weren't laughing anymore. Then came the shouting. Their parents stormed in, their mother shrieking in outrage, their father barking at Logan to calm down. But Logan wasn't the one who needed to calm down. His career, his tools, his future, it had all been destroyed in a single night because of Nathan's recklessness. He turned to them, chest heaving. "He trashed my tools," Logan spat. "You think that's okay?" But his parents didn't even look at Nathan. Their concern was solely on Logan's reaction. "You need to control your temper," his father said sternly. His mother wrung her hands. "Logan, honey, you're overreacting. It's not the end of the world." "Not the end of the world?" Logan let out a hollow laugh. "Do you have any idea how much this is going to cost to replace?" Silence. Then his father sighed. "Maybe if you want better storage for your tools, you should be paying more rent." The words hit him like a physical blow. More rent. More. He had been paying for everything. His rent covered the entire mortgage, his extra fees covered the bills, his hard-earned money kept this house running. And now, after everything, after Nathan had trashed the only things Logan truly owned, they wanted more? Logan stared at them, something inside him breaking. His whole life, He had done everything right. He had worked hard, followed the rules, paid his dues. And yet, none of it mattered. Nathan would always be the golden child, the one they protected. And Logan? He was nothing more than a paycheck to them. Nathan, still smirking, took a swig from his beer. Guess you should have kept them somewhere safer, bro. That was it. Logan didn't say another word. He turned, walked past them, past the wreckage of his life's work, past the people who were supposed to be his family. He wasn't going to let them take another cent from him. Not ever again. Logan knew there was no future for him in that house. After years of being used, undervalued, and forced to bankroll his parents and his useless brother, he had finally reached his limit. The night Nathan and his friends destroyed his mechanic tools and his parents told him to pay more rent if he wanted better storage was the final confirmation. He wasn't their son. He was their financial crutch, their personal ATM. They had never respected him, never appreciated him. And now, they were about to learn what life was like without him. But he wasn't going to announce his departure. He wasn't going to argue or explain. That would only give them time to manipulate him, to guilt-trip him, to find a way to keep him trapped. No, Logan had spent his entire life doing things the right way, and where had that gotten him? Stuck in a house he was paying for but didn't even feel welcome in, eating scraps while Nathan lounged in comfort. He was done being their fool. So, he started moving in secret. The first step was securing his money. His parents had no direct access to his bank account, but they knew where his paycheck was deposited. That changed immediately. Logan opened a new account at a different bank, one they knew nothing about, and redirected his direct deposit. He left just enough in the old account to avoid suspicion, but every dollar he earned now went somewhere they couldn't touch. Next, he found a new place to live, a small, one-room garage apartment across town. It wasn't much, but it was his. The rent was fair, the space was clean, and best of all, it was completely separate from anyone who had ever treated him like a walking wallet. Then came the slow, deliberate process of removing himself from the house. He started with small things, things that wouldn't be noticed. Spare clothes, a few tools, some personal belongings, items he could easily slip into his truck without raising suspicion. It had to be gradual. If his parents caught on too soon, they would try to stop him. Nathan never noticed, of course. He was too busy gaming, stuffing his face with snacks Logan had unknowingly paid for, living in the comfort Logan's money had provided. Their parents didn't notice either, too accustomed to ignoring Logan unless they needed something from him. Then came the final step, stopping the rent payments. At first, no one said anything. His parents likely assumed there was a banking delay or a minor oversight. They didn't check in with him, didn't ask about it. After all, Logan had been so reliable, so stupidly responsible, that they had never considered the possibility that he would simply stop paying. They noticed soon enough. A week before the mortgage was due, Logan overheard his mother on the phone with the bank. The concern in her voice was clear. "I don't know what's going on, but the payment isn't showing. My son always takes care of it. Not this time." By July 31st, the day before the mortgage payment was due, Logan was ready. Everything he needed was already in his truck. The last few items, his remaining clothes, his work boots, and the few sentimental things he had left, were packed neatly in the back. There was no grand farewell, no dramatic confrontation. Just a quiet, final exit. He left before dawn, before anyone could wake up and ask questions. He didn't slam the door. He didn't leave a note. He simply got in his truck, started the engine, and drove away from the house he had unknowingly been paying for. It wasn't until the next day that his parents and Nathan realized what had happened. At first, it probably seemed like an ordinary morning. His mother would have gotten up, made coffee, and expected Logan to leave for work as usual. His father would have assumed Logan was just running errands. Nathan wouldn't have noticed at all, too busy wasting away in front of his computer screen. Then the mortgage payment was due. And there was no money. That was when the panic set in. Logan could only imagine how it played out. His mother scrambling through bank statements, refreshing online transactions, realizing that Logan's payments had stopped weeks ago. His father, furious, demanding to know where Logan was, calling his phone only to be met with silence. Nathan, oblivious, probably wandered downstairs in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes, completely unaware that his entire cushy existence had just collapsed around him. By the time they realized Logan was truly gone, it was too late. The bank didn't care about their excuses. There was no more money coming in. The mortgage was due, and without Logan's income, they couldn't afford to pay it. Maybe they thought he would come back. Maybe they thought he would feel guilty and return with a check in hand, ready to fix the mess they had made. But Logan wasn't coming back. For the first time in years, he was free. August 1st was the day everything came crashing down. Logan woke up in his new apartment, stretched his arms, and took a deep breath of air that, for the first time in years, didn't feel heavy with obligation. He had slept peacefully, knowing that whatever storm was brewing back at his parents' house was no longer his problem. His phone sat on the nightstand, silent. He had muted their numbers the night before. No texts, no missed calls, no frantic voicemails begging for help. If they were panicking, if their world was falling apart, he wouldn't know, and he didn't care. Back in his childhood home, though, chaos reigned. The morning started like any other for his parents, except this time, something was different. His mother checked the online banking app, expecting to see the mortgage payment deducted as it always had been. Instead, she was met with a flashing red notification: payment declined. Confused, she refreshed the page. Nothing changed. She checked their balance. The numbers didn't make sense. She clicked through previous transactions, searching for Logan's rent deposit. They weren't there. The realization hit her like ice water. Logan had stopped paying. Panic set in fast. She ran into the kitchen, calling for her husband, voice shaking as she explained. "Steven, something's wrong. Logan's payment stopped. He hasn't paid for weeks." Steven, still groggy, frowned. "That's not possible." But it was. They scrambled to their credit cards, hoping to pay the mortgage another way, but each attempt was met with the same response: declined. They had maxed out everything. The bank had no patience for their financial mismanagement. Then the internet went down. Nathan, still in his pajamas, was in the middle of a livestream, rambling to his small audience about some new game. Suddenly, his screen froze, the chat disconnected, and his voice cut out mid-sentence. He blinked at the screen, waiting for it to refresh. When nothing happened, he groaned and stomped downstairs. "The internet's down," he whined. "Can you guys fix it?" His parents were too preoccupied with their financial disaster to respond immediately, frantically refreshing bank apps and trying to call Logan. Nathan scoffed. Hello? Did you hear me? The Wi-Fi isn't working." His mother snapped her head up, eyes wild. "We didn't pay the bill, Nathan. We don't have money for it." Nathan frowned, then laughed. "Okay, but just pay it?" His father slammed his fist on the table. "We can't." That was when it hit him. No internet meant no streaming. No streaming meant no money. Nathan rushed back to his room, fumbling with his phone, trying to connect to data. Maybe he could hotspot. Maybe it was just a glitch. But no, his phone plan was overdue too. His gaming career, if one could even call it that, was dead in an instant. And then the real nightmare began. That afternoon, his mother started spamming Logan's phone. "Mom, Logan, we need to talk. Mom, there's been some kind of mistake. The mortgage wasn't paid. Can you fix it? Mom, Logan, answer me. Mom, this is serious. You have a responsibility to this family." Logan watched the texts roll in, sitting in his truck after work. He didn't respond. His father tried next. "Dad, I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is unacceptable. You are our son, and you will fix this. Dad, you can't just leave us to struggle. We raised you. You owe us." Logan smirked at that one. He owed them? No. They owed him. 4 years of taking his money. For forcing him to pay rent while Nathan lived in comfort. For treating him like nothing more than a source of income while giving his lazy brother everything on a silver platter. His silence made them desperate. That evening, while he was working a late shift at the garage, he heard a commotion near the entrance. One of his coworkers called his name, and when Logan stepped outside, his father was standing there, red-faced and fuming. "You think this is funny?" his dad spat, marching toward him. Logan's coworkers tensed, sensing the aggression. Logan, however, was calm. "I think it's long overdue," he said. "You're ruining this family," his father seethed. "We're in crisis because of you." Logan scoffed. "No, you're in crisis because you spent years relying on me to keep a roof over your heads while Nathan sat on his ass all day. That's not my problem anymore." His father's hands clenched into fists. "You think you can just abandon us? I didn't abandon anything. I left a situation that was using me. You're just mad because now you have to deal with the mess you made." "You owe us," his father bellowed, drawing attention from the other workers. Logan didn't flinch. He folded his arms and tilted his head. "Do I? Because I don't recall anyone thanking me for paying your mortgage all these years. I don't recall anyone defending me when Nathan trashed my tools. I don't recall being treated like a son, just a wallet." His father's face darkened, veins bulging in his neck. "You're coming home and you're going to fix this." Logan chuckled coldly. "No. I'm not." That was when security stepped in. 2 of the garage's security guards approached. "Sir, you need to leave." His father turned on them. "This is my son, I have a right to." "You have no right to harass our employee," one of the guards said firmly. "Leave now or we'll have to call the police." His father's face twisted in fury. But there was nothing he could do. Logan watched as security escorted him off the property. His father threw one last glare over his shoulder before disappearing into the night. After that, Logan blocked his parents' numbers. He never answered another call. Nathan, meanwhile, had to face his own downfall. With no more internet and no money coming in from his failed gaming dreams, he was forced to do something he had never done before: get a real job. It was a disaster. He ended up at Walmart working as a stocker. His soft, lazy hands blistered from handling heavy boxes. His feet ached from standing for hours. He wasn't used to manual labor, wasn't used to taking orders, wasn't used to being held accountable, and he hated every second of it. He took to social media, ranting about how unfair life was, how his stupid brother abandoned them, how capitalism was evil, and how some people get everything handed to them while others have to suffer. The irony was lost on him. Over the next few months, reality crushed his parents. With no way to pay the mortgage, the bank foreclosed on the house. They had to sell off furniture, pawn belongings, scrape together whatever they could to afford rent somewhere else. By winter, they were living in a cramped apartment, far from the comfort they were used to, far from the house Logan had unknowingly paid for all those years. And Logan? Logan was thriving. His savings were growing, his career was strong, and best of all, he was free. For the first time in his life, he was living for himself. And he had no regrets. Logan had no intention of letting Nathan get away with destroying his tools. His departure from that house didn't mean he had forgotten the thousands of dollars in damages his brother had caused. Those tools weren't just expensive, they were his livelihood. Nathan had trashed them without a second thought, and their parents had brushed it off as if it were nothing. But now, Logan was no longer the family's pushover. He filed a lawsuit for $3,500, the estimated cost of replacing the damaged tools. He had everything he needed: photo evidence from the night of the destruction, receipts for the original purchases, and even statements from some of Nathan's own friends. Those same friends who had laughed and played around with his tools were more than happy to shift the blame entirely onto Nathan when faced with the possibility of being held responsible. In the lawsuit, Logan made it clear. He wasn't just demanding compensation. He was demanding accountability. His parents, already drowning in financial problems, were horrified when they received the legal notice. They didn't have the money to pay off the mortgage, much less cover a lawsuit. His mother immediately tried to contact him, sending desperate messages. "Mom, Logan, please, we're already struggling. Mom, you don't need to do this. We're family. Mom, think about how this will affect your father. He's been so stressed lately." Logan didn't respond. He didn't care about their stress. He had been stressed for years, working himself to the bone while they took his money without a second thought. Now they were finally feeling the consequences of their actions. Their father was furious, of course, but this time, the anger wasn't just directed at Logan. It was directed at Nathan, too. "This is your fault," he roared at his younger son. "You had one job: keep your damn hands off your brother's things." Nathan, slouched on the couch in their cramped apartment, groaned. "Chill, Dad. Logan's just being a—" "I don't want to hear it," his father snapped. "You already ruined your so-called career, and now we have to deal with this lawsuit on top of everything else." Their mother tried to calm them down, but even she wasn't on Nathan's side this time. The cracks in their family had already been forming, but now they were fully breaking apart. The tension turned into open hostility. "Stephen, you were the one who insisted Logan should pay rent in the first place," she shouted at her husband. "And you were the one who coddled Nathan so much he turned into a useless bum," he shot back. Nathan, insulted, snapped, "I'm not a bum. I just—" "You don't do anything," his father roared. "You had a free ride for years, and look where that got us." Nathan crossed his arms, pouting. "Maybe if you had saved money instead of buying golf clubs and fancy dinners, we wouldn't be in this mess." Their father's face turned red with rage. "Oh, so it's my fault now? Not the son who wasted his life playing video games and skipping work." Nathan had been skipping shifts at Walmart for weeks, still believing he could somehow get his streaming career back. But without the internet, without a stable home, and without any backup plan, there was nothing left of his so-called career. The few followers he had quickly lost interest. He was just another failed wannabe streamer, completely forgotten by the world. With the lawsuit looming over them, their father had no choice. He had to sell his golf clubs, The same ones he had always prioritized over Logan's needs, the ones he had once refused to sell when Logan was struggling to afford new work equipment. But even that wasn't enough. So, he swallowed his pride and took a night job delivering pizzas. 4 years, he had mocked Logan's hard work, implying that physical labor wasn't real success. Now, he was the one pulling exhausting shifts, driving around in his aging car, barely making enough to scrape by. Meanwhile, Logan was thriving. At work, he had been putting in extra effort, proving himself as a reliable and skilled mechanic. His boss had noticed. "Logan, I've been keeping an eye on you," his manager said one day. "You've got the best work ethic in the shop. We want to give you a promotion and a raise." Logan accepted without hesitation. A higher salary, more respect, a future that was his own, free from the weight of his family's selfishness. While his parents and brother sank further into their self-inflicted misery, Logan moved forward. He upgraded his garage apartment into a better place, somewhere with more space, somewhere that felt like a true home. He started saving for the future, something his family had never done, something they had expected him to do for them. Nathan, still in denial, continued complaining online, blaming everyone but himself. "My brother ruined my life," he posted on a gaming forum. "He abandoned us, sued us, and left me to suffer." The replies were brutal. User 1. "Sounds like your brother finally got tired of your BS." User 2. "Bro, you trashed his tools, wasted your life playing video games, and now you're mad he moved on? Get a grip." User 3. "Maybe get a real job and stop whining." Nathan's attempt to play the victim backfired spectacularly. Even strangers on the internet saw through his nonsense. By the time the lawsuit went to small claims court, Logan barely had to say anything. The evidence spoke for itself. The judge ruled in his favor immediately, ordering Nathan to pay the full $3,500. Nathan, who barely had enough money to cover his own expenses, was forced into a repayment plan. Every month, part of his miserable Walmart paycheck now went directly to Logan. Poetic justice. His parents, once proud and smug, had nothing left. Their reputation was destroyed, their finances in ruins, their golden child reduced to a bitter, broke retail worker. Logan had walked away from them once, and he never looked back. The begging started about a month after Logan won the lawsuit. At first, his family had been too busy tearing each other apart to focus on him. His dad was exhausted from working late nights delivering pizzas. His mom was constantly stressed over their dwindling finances, and Nathan was still Nathan, angry, entitled, and utterly useless. But as reality set in, they realized something. Without Logan, they couldn't sustain themselves. The apartment they had moved into was too small, too expensive for a family that had spent years living off someone else's income. The bills kept piling up, and their arguments grew louder. Nathan still refused to contribute, insisting that he was too good for real work. He had already been skipping Walmart shifts, calling out sick or just not showing up at all. Their father, humiliated by his own failure, lashed out at him constantly. And that's when they came up with their brilliant solution. Logan should come back and pool resources with them. Their mother was the first to reach out, trying to sound sweet and reasonable. "Mom, Logan, honey, we need to talk. Mom, things have been really hard for us. It would make so much sense for all of us to live together again. We can split everything and support each other. Mom, family sticks together. We should be helping one another." Logan read the messages without even blinking. Helping each other? What a joke. He had helped them for years, and they had done nothing but take. An hour later, his father tried a different approach, anger. "Dad, you can't just abandon your family like this. Dad, you think you're better than us now? You're still our son, and you have responsibilities. Dad, stop being selfish and step up." Logan smirked at his phone. They still didn't get it. They still thought they could manipulate him into saving them from their own mistake. So, he decided to respond. Not with words, but with proof. He compiled everything: bank statements, old rent receipts, records of how much he had paid toward their mortgage, utilities, and extra household expenses. He listed out the thousands of dollars they had drained from him, the unfair treatment, and the way they had made him responsible for their survival while Nathan lived rent-free. He included photos of his destroyed tools, receipts from replacing them, and even screenshots of Nathan's gaming purchases. Thousands of dollars wasted on a career that never even existed. And then, he sent it all to them in a single email. The subject line was simple: "You used me." Within minutes, the responses flooded in. His mother was horrified. "Mom, Logan, this isn't fair. We didn't mean to take advantage of you. Mom, we love you. This is just what families do." His father's tone flipped from anger to desperation. "Dad, okay, we made mistakes, but we can fix this together. Dad, just come home and we can start over." Nathan, predictably, had the worst response. "Nathan, wow, you're seriously acting like a victim? Get over it. Nathan, you think you're so much better than us now just because you have money? Nathan, you'll come crawling back eventually." Logan read the messages once. Then, without hesitation, he blocked them all. That was it. No more contact. No more guilt trips. No more manipulation. And it was the best feeling in the world. Meanwhile, his family's situation only got worse. Nathan, still refusing to pay rent, was making things even more unbearable. His father had expected him to start contributing, but Nathan acted like the very idea was offensive. "I'm not going to waste my paycheck on bills," he sneered. "I need to save up for a gaming PC so I can get my career back." His father lost it. "You don't have a career, you idiot," he exploded one night. "You had years to make something of yourself, and you blew it. You sat around playing video games while Logan kept a roof over your head, and you have the nerve to act like you don't owe us anything?" Nathan shrugged. Logan didn't have to pay. That was his choice. His mother tried to intervene, but the damage was done. The arguments got worse, turning into full-on screaming matches. Their father was working nights, barely sleeping, coming home to a son who refused to lift a finger and a wife who blamed him for everything that had gone wrong. The resentment between them boiled over into constant fights. Nathan, still delusional, continued ranting online about how unfair life was. He blamed his selfish brother, the corrupt job market, and the idiots who refused to support his streaming dream. His old followers mocked him, reminding him that he had done nothing but play video games badly and complain. His father, bitter and exhausted, finally snapped. One night, after another missed rent payment, he threw Nathan's gaming setup into the dumpster. The desk, the chair, the monitors, everything. Nathan's screams echoed through the apartment complex. "What the hell, Dad?" His father didn't care. "You're done sitting around doing nothing. Either get a real job or get the hell out of my house." Nathan stormed off, swearing he'd move out soon. Of course, he didn't. He had no money, no skills, and no future. Meanwhile, Logan was thriving. For the first time in his life, his money was his own. No more rent payments disappearing into a black hole. No more covering for a family that never appreciated him. He started saving aggressively, watching his bank account grow. He planned vacations. Actual vacations, something he had never been able to afford while supporting his parents. He enjoyed the peace of knowing that no one was going to demand his paycheck. No one was going to treat him like a walking ATM. One day, as he sat on his couch in his quiet, clean apartment, scrolling through vacation options, he realized something. Some people only value you when they need something from you. And cutting them off was the best decision he ever made.